Yo, what is going on, guys? Today we're actually doing something a little bit different. Well, kind of. We're going to be reading an article written by a gaming journalist, but not because I disagree with it. In fact, I think it's a pretty reasonable take. I know that's gonna be crazy from my channel. I don't actually hate something a gaming journalist has to say, but I actually just want to give my input on this because I kind of agree. So I've talked a bit on the channel about Souls games and Souls-like games. I've also talked about Ninja Gaiden, I'm pretty sure, or at least I played it on streams and stuff. But the article that we're going to go over today has to do with both of these styles of games, Ninja Gaiden games and Souls-like / Souls games. The article we're going to take a look at today is called Ninja Gaiden's Revival is the Perfect Antidote to the Souls-like Phenomenon. It's time for character action games to retake the crown. And you know what? After playing through Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, I wouldn't have any issue with this at all. Personally, I think these genres should coexist, but let's be honest, dude. I kinda miss these style of games, and I think a lot of other people would agree with me. These games, like Ninja Gaiden 2, are everything that I loved about the Xbox 360 generation, which is a generation a lot of people would consider the golden age of gaming. The game is just non-stop action. The story doesn't take up most of the game, and it just kind of exists to tell you where you're going and what you're doing. The game is like 99.9% focused on gameplay. It's challenging but doesn't feel impossible. There's gore, tons of it, which is unfortunately something that's kind of being taken away from a lot of modern games. And it's just balls to the wall action, like it's so much fucking fun. And this is something that applies to both Ninja Gaiden 2 Black and the original Ninja Gaiden 2 for the Xbox 360. Which, by the way, if you guys want to play it, you can play this game on Xbox Series X through backwards compatibility, or if you know how to set up an emulator, you can play it that way as well. Otherwise, you'd have to play the Sigma version, which is a bit of a downgrade, but we'll get into that. Anyway, let's just go ahead and get into the article today so I can give my thoughts. Of all the reveals at the 2025 Xbox Developer Direct, the revival of Ninja Gaiden has to be one of the biggest. The classic action franchise is receiving multiple new games, including Ninja Gaiden 4 and Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, the latter of which shadow dropped right after the event. Such a 180-degree turn for the series was certainly a surprise, since outside of the Ninja Gaiden Master Collection compilation, the last time we received a proper entry in this franchise was Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge all the way back in 2012. But it also heralds what could be a pivotal turning point for games as a medium, the return of old-school 3D action games after years of the genre being dominated by Souls-like games. Now, there's a couple things I want to say. First of all, I understand why Ninja Gaiden 3 was the last kind of game in the Ninja Gaiden franchise for a long time. That game was not that great. Now, the game's not terrible. If you play it and you haven't played Ninja Gaiden 2, you probably think it's a pretty good game. But coming out right after Ninja Gaiden 2, what a lot of people consider to be one of the greatest action games of all time, it was okay at best, let's be honest. There were a lot of stupid changes made to it, like I didn't like how you had to use points to unlock all the different moves and stuff, there weren't as many weapons, the bosses were annoying, the changes to the healing system fucking sucked. It was a Ninja Gaiden game that wasn't really bad, but it didn't feel like Ninja Gaiden. I kinda feel the same way about it than I do Doom 3. But as the article says, with Ninja Gaiden 4 coming out and Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, this could be the return of the old-school 3D action games, and it could overtake the Souls-like genre, which I have fun with a lot of the Souls-like games, but I think it's getting a little bit overdone at this point. I think we can leave the Souls games to From Software, where once games like Ninja Gaiden, Devil May Cry, and the original God of War series ran the action scene, that style of game has all been but supplanted by the likes of From Software entries such as Dark Souls, Bloodborne, and Elden Ring. We don't dislike that type of game, to be clear, but there should be room in the AAA marketplace for both, and the return of Ninja Gaiden could be the balancing of the scales the action genre desperately needs. I agree 1,000,000%, dude. I enjoy Souls-like games a lot, but they're getting overdone at this point, let's be honest, dude. They definitely take a lot of time and patience to play play through. You have to learn a lot of different boss moves and stuff like that. It's not really games that you beat in a weekend. Whereas Ninja Gaiden, while still difficult, it's definitely a lot shorter to play through. The bosses are hard, just like Dark Souls, but it's less about learning the attack patterns and stuff like that. There's less trial and error, and it's more about can you do it or can you not do it. A lot of the times in the Souls games you'll find yourself grinding out enemies to be able to beat a boss, well at least I do anyway. Whereas in Ninja Gaiden there's none of that, it's can you beat the boss or can you not beat the boss, there ain't no grinding. Maybe besides getting some of the healing items. The Dragon Lineage. The Ninja Gaiden series was once widely considered the pinnacle of action games. The 2004 relaunch on the original Xbox was a far cry from the 2D action platformers that popularized the series on the NES. But the new take on Ryu Hayabusa's adventures became instantly iconic for its buttery smooth gameplay, remarkably fluid animation, and extreme difficulty. Sure, there were plenty of other hack-and-slash action games on the market, and some were even known for being hard like Devil May Cry, but Ninja Gaiden stood apart from the pack, particularly daring players to give up before they even finished the first level. Many players have told stories about being beaten into submission by Murari, I think is how you say that. Murari? I don't know. A master of nunchaku and the first boss of the game. But despite the challenge, anyone who spent a decent amount of time with the game will tell you that aside from some camera woes that lead to being attacked by off-screen enemies from time to time, the difficulty of Ninja Gaiden is mostly fair, all things considered. Deaths are common, but come from player mistakes and not being fully in tune with the rhythm of combat. The delicate dance of movement, defense, and counterattacks that expert players use to decimate their opponents. From the iconic Izuna drop, the overwhelming power of ultimate techniques, and a litany of combos to master for all the various weapons, there are more than enough tools at the player's disposal to overcome every challenge the game throws at you. And one thing I really like about Ninja Gaiden that's much different than Dark Souls, well, at least the newer Souls games, is the bosses are very short. However, they're very demanding. With the newer Souls games, a lot of the boss fights are like 10 minutes long, and if you die at the end, you gotta restart it over and over and over again, and sometimes you just don't have the time to play through it, because of how much time you're losing on the boss fights. But Ninja Gaiden, the bosses are very short, but they're also very difficult at the same time. So it doesn't matter if you restart a bunch of times because the boss is so short that you're not losing that much time to the boss fights. The focus of Ninja Gaiden games are more so on the levels, whereas Dark Souls games nowadays focus more on the bosses. One is not inherently better than the other, but it is a really nice switch of pace. At the end of the day, it all comes down to personal preference, but it's nice to have some games out there that you can play that are more focused on the levels rather than the bosses, and vice versa, so people can kind of pick what style of games they'd like to play. If all of that rhetoric sounds familiar, it's because Ninja Gaiden, ironically enough, was a progenitor to the Souls-like phenomenon, and the fan community that spawned around it. Players loving Ninja Gaiden for its brutal challenge and conquering the hardest difficulty settings influenced the mindset that Souls-like fans have, of seeking the satisfaction of finally beating what initially felt like insurmountable odds. Few action games require such mastery of their mechanics in order to succeed as Ninja Gaiden does, and From Software and the games it influenced took that idea and turned it into an entire subgenre. Yet it may have done too good of a job because the Souls-like model has consumed action games over the past decade, much to their detriment. Follow the leader. It's not a coincidence that Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2, the PS3 port of Ninja Gaiden 2 that is widely considered an inferior version and the start of the series' downfall, came out the same year as Demon's Souls, released in 2009. The PS3 action RPG received strong reviews and set the stage for the release of Dark Souls in 2011. Which was a landmark title that has been frequently called one of the greatest video games ever made, including by IGN around the same time that the disastrous Ninja Gaiden 3 and its somewhat better re-release, Razor's Edge, were cratering the Hayabusa saga. Dark Souls was carving out a sizable space in the action market. The game received 2 direct sequels and led to From Software making further refinement to the same gameplay style in Bloodborne, Sekiro, and Elden Ring. The truth is, Ninja Gaiden 3 didn't have to kill Ninja Gaiden for as long as it did, like it didn't have to put it into hibernation for a decade. They could have tried again after Ninja Gaiden 3, but they just didn't. IGN then put a poll saying if you had to choose between soulslikes and traditional action games like Ninja Gaiden, which one would you pick? You can see 61.6% of people actually said Ninja Gaiden, 30.4% said souls-like games, and 8% said neither, they like their movie games. So this just proves that there's a market for these types of games, as well as souls-like games, so I don't think they should get rid of souls-like games, I think there should be both. If there's a large market for these sorts of games, why would you not make them? The massive popularity of From Software's mechanics spilled into other franchises, such as Respawn Entertainment's Star Wars Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor, Team Ninja's Neo, and Game Science's Black Myth Wukong. Now, most of the games we just listed are beloved by players and critics alike. There's nothing wrong with the Souls-like model in a vacuum. I don't think there's anything wrong with the Souls-like model at all. I just think you can get burnt out of these type of games when every single publisher makes them. And I think having Souls-like games and these kind of classic style action games like Devil May Cry, or Ninja Gaiden 2, or the OG God of War games, would be a nice change of pace. Therefore, those who like their Souls-like games can play their Souls-like games, and people who like these classic style games can enjoy these classic style games. The problem is nowadays is you don't really see games like Ninja Gaiden 2 anymore. You see Souls-like games, which are great for people who enjoy Souls-like games, but it's not so great for people who enjoy these Ninja Gaiden style games that are just balls to the wall action. Another way people used to refer to these games are your hack and slash games. Now you could argue, well, they still make God of War games, they still make Devil May Cry games, and you're right. Except God of War doesn't really play like the OG God of War games did, it's more of an emotional story nowadays, which is great for those that like that sort of thing, but personally I'm more of a hack and slash guy. As for Devil May Cry, the last time they made a Devil May Cry was like 2019? But this style of game has suffocated the AAA action space to the point of classic style 3D action games being few and far between. Ninja Gaiden is only just coming back after over a decade in the cooler. The last proper Devil May Cry entry, DMC5, was released in 2019. God of War was revived in 2018 but lost a lot of its mechanical personality in the process, being stripped of its linear, fast-paced hack-and-slash gameplay in favor of a more industry-standard, semi-open world with slower, more methodical combat. The new God of War games aren't an exact copy of the Souls-like style, they certainly feel more akin to it. Said style has many hallmarks that gamers can instantly recognize. Difficult combat built around timing, dodges, and parries. Stamina management, a need to create a build for your character with customizable equipment, large open-ended level design, and save points healing the player character while also respawning non-boss enemies in the environment. From Software using this model for its games makes sense because they invented it, but so many other developers copying their homework means gamers are now overdosed on this style. Now that Ninja Gaiden is back in the mainstream with the release of Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, the strengths that are specific to character action games have a new chance to shine. I have never seen something from a gaming journalist that I agree with more than this. This guy is spot on and one of the few journalists in the industry that doesn't chomp fucking paste. From Software does an excellent job at creating their Souls games, and I don't think anyone in their right mind expects them to stop using their formula that they fucking created. And even some of the Souls clones are alright. Not as good as the From Software games, but still fun. However, not every single developer needs to use this exact formula, and it would be cool to see developers use kind of the Ninja Gaiden style, where it's just a classic hack and slash adventure. Now allow me to make something very, very clear when I say that. I don't mean copy everything that Ninja Gaiden does either, because in that case you get the exact same problem just with Ninja Gaiden likes, let's just say, rather than Souls likes, where everyone's just ripping off Ninja Gaiden. We don't want that either. Playing Ninja Gaiden 2 Black is the breath of fresh air that the action genre has needed for quite some time. The lightning-fast combat, wide variety of weapons, and the return of the blood and gore from the original release that the Sigma iteration dropped makes this the best version of Ninja Gaiden 2 you can play on modern hardware. I'm gonna have to stop you there. I do think that the original Ninja Gaiden 2 that you can play backwards compatible on an Xbox Series X or Xbox 360, I think that is the best version of the game. However, if you're on PlayStation or PC, two platforms that do not have access to the classic Ninja Gaiden 2 version, this is definitely the best version to play and better than Sigma. The difference between Sigma and Ninja Gaiden 2 original is there's a lot less blood in Sigma, and this was due to hardware limitations for the PS3 port, and a few balancing changes, like enemy placements, and the weapon upgrading system. Now, I'm not saying that Ninja Gaiden 2 Sigma is a bad game, because it's not, just the worst version of a good game, and you can mod it to make it a lot more like the original, with a Ninja Gaiden 2 Sigma Black mod. And there's actually a lot more content in Ninja Gaiden 2 Sigma than the base version of the original game, so that's worth noting. This new remaster is also a stark reminder of what was lost when games of its kind stopped being a pillar of the action space. It can be hard to remember now, but games inspired by Ninja Gaiden and God of War were all over the place in the late 2000s and early 2010s, such as Platinum Games' Bayonetta, peak game by the way, Visceral Games' Dante Inferno, another fucking peak game. Dude, holy shit, what I would do for a remaster of Dante's Inferno. Vigil Games' Darksiders, and even From Software's attempt to copy Ninja Gaiden in the long-forgotten Ninja Blade. Frantic combo-based battles against dozens of foes and an array of giant bosses presented in a curated linear format is such a tried and true formula that it's shocking how much the template evaporated as the Souls-like model took prominence. Now, games that use similar mechanics as Ninja Gaiden aren't completely gone. Hi-Fi Rush's rhythm-based take on the same gameplay loop was released in 2023, but Ninja Gaiden 2 Black is one of the most prominent examples of the form released by a major developer in years pretty much by default. More than anything, replaying Ninja Gaiden 2 in its latest incarnation highlights why the experience of games like it can't be replicated elsewhere. There's a purity to action games like Ninja Gaiden where there are no real cheats to get ahead, no builds to copy off of a guide, no experience points to outlevel the enemies, no stamina bar to limit your abilities. It's just you and the game, and you do the best with the small handful of tools you're given. You either master the combat put in front of you, or you find yourself staring at a game over screen over and over again. Which, by the way, I was definitely one of those people as a kid that stared at that game over screen over and over and over again as I died to the final boss of Chapter 2 time and time again. So while we don't anticipate Souls-like games losing their hold on the gaming populace anytime soon, hopefully the return of Ninja Gaiden starts a new golden age for action games. Surely there's enough audience to go around for both. 100%. I don't want Souls games to disappear, especially not the From Software ones, because they are genuinely a blast to play. But I'd like to see these games pop up alongside them, because I genuinely had a blast with this game. There's one final thing I want to touch on before we end off today's video. One thing in Ninja Gaiden 2 Black that I saw that is definitely missing from modern games is the edginess. And I didn't think this journalist would bring it up because, let's be honest, part of the reason why the edginess is gone from gaming is because of certain people like those at IGN that are definitely soft. Now, this doesn't mean all games are soft nowadays, you still have shit like Doom, but let's just say gaming isn't really, you know, catering to the edgelords like myself that it used to. But I don't really have that much else to say. You can see me absolutely getting bodied by this boss in the background because, I don't know, this boss is fucking rough. Bro. Especially the I don't want to spoil anything. But yeah, I thought this was genuinely a good article, and I don't have much else to say. Would love to see more games like this. Peace.